Hello and welcome to Why Is This a Podcast? I'm Kieran Watts, and I kind of want to do this episode, and I kind of don't for reasons that will become apparent in a moment. I don't have a guest today, and it's going to be brief. The reason why it's not going to be very long is because our souls collectively, I don't think, could take much more than a few minutes of the topic that I'm going to touch on, which is the tragedy in Afghanistan. I tend to joke on this show. I tend to try and have some fun with my guests. I enjoy having fun with my guests. I enjoy telling jokes, no matter how terrible they are. And I know most of them, if not all of them, are terrible. And I love talking to people about what they're passionate about. This is a difficult one because it's very difficult to joke about what's going on in Afghanistan after the Taliban have retaken the country. The government's collapsed. And I know that the subject matter isn't always light. If anything, it really is. But this is dark. This is a really dark time for not just the people of Afghanistan. Certainly, it's a terrible time for them. It's also a terrible time for the world. The fact that the Taliban managed to recapture Afghanistan in days. What's going on there is heartbreaking. It really is. And I've been reading articles about it and seeing what's going on there from a safe distance, which makes me question, should I even be talking about this given how safe I am? But it's important to talk about it, and I know I don't really have a wide following, a wide audience, but it's important nonetheless. I just want to quote from two articles that I read. And the links to both will be in the description down below, so you read the full things because they're worth reading. And the first is published in The Guardian, and it's titled "An Afghan Woman in Kabul." Quote, "Now I have to burn everything I achieved." And the author is simply credited as a Kabul resident. And people in Afghanistan, of course, they're very scared, especially women. And the author writes in just the very first three paragraphs, quote, "Early on Sunday morning, I was heading to university for a class when a group of women came running out from the women's dormitory. I asked what had happened, and one of them told me the police were evacuating them because the Taliban had arrived in Kabul and they will beat women who do not have a burqa. We all wanted to get home, but we couldn't use public transport. The drivers would not let us in their cars because they did not want to take responsibility for transporting a woman. It was even worse for the women from the dormitory, who are from outside Kabul and were scared and confused about where they should go. Meanwhile, the men standing around were making fun of girls and women, laughing at our terror. Go and put on your chadri. Apologies if I pronounced that incorrectly, but that means burqa. One of them called out, "It is your last days of being out on the streets," said another. "I will marry 4 of you in one day," said a third. End quote. Later on in the article, the author writes, "I worked for so many days and nights to become the person I am today, and this morning when I reached home, the very first thing my sisters and I did was hide our IDs, diplomas, and certificates. It was devastating. Why should we hide the things that we should be proud of? In Afghanistan now, we are not allowed to be known as the people we are. They go on to say Afghan women sacrificed a lot for the little freedom they had. As an orphan, I weaved carpets just to get an education. I faced a lot of financial challenges, but I had a lot of plans for my future. I did not expect everything to end up like this. Let me repeat one of those sentences from that article. In Afghanistan now, we are not allowed to be known as the people we are. The other article I read, or one of the other articles I read that I'm going to quote from this, to quote during this episode, was by Michael Day for The Eye about Sarifa Ghaffari. She made history. She became the youngest female mayor, I believe. Fact check me in the comments. But she is the mayor of Maidan Shah. She's an advocate for women's empowerment. By the time this video is released, she could be dead. And so could her family, as she herself is painfully aware. Day quotes her saying, "I'm sitting here waiting for them to come. There is no one to help me or my family. I'm just sitting with them and my husband. And they will come for people like me and kill me. I can't leave my family. And anyway, where would I go?" We've seen displacement, we've seen people flee for their lives, but as Day points out, many have nowhere to hide, and like Mayor Ghaffari, are just waiting. People have been killed, and yes, the Taliban said no one's life, property, and dignity will be harmed, and the lives of the citizens of Kabul will not be at risk, and they've offered amnesty. I mean, what good is the words of the Taliban? As I said, I'm talking about this in safety, miles and miles and miles away. But part of the reason why I decided to record this, what comfort it gives anyone who sees it, is because I'm part of the LGBT community and the Taliban hate me. I'm quoting again from an article, this one in Pink News, from just July. This July just gone, where a Taliban judge said, quote, "There are only two penalties for gays, either stoning or he has to stand behind a wall that falls on him. The wall must be 2.5 to 3 meters high." 2.5 to 3 meters high. What kind of person would I be if I didn't at least acknowledge the experiences of members of my community, no matter where they are? We're not going to get into the politics of this, as much as I usually like to get into the politics of things. I am just going to say that we shouldn't blame the Afghanistan population for not fighting hard enough. This is a conglomeration of years and years of mistakes, and the people who will suffer are not the people who made those mistakes. Right now, many governments around the world are working, fighting to get their citizens home, and I wish them every success in that endeavour, sincerely. But we've also got to think about the people of Afghanistan whose lives are now at risk, and we should be generous in offering sanctuary to those people and working together as a global community to help the country. If the Taliban are here to stay, then we need to let them know that we mean business. The human rights are non-negotiable. Because no matter what they say, we have got government after government the world over, which have said that they will respect human rights, the rights of people belonging to the most vulnerable and marginalized communities, who just don't live up to their word. But ultimately, we just need to be compassionate. I understand why we don't want to fight what we'll see as someone else's war. Let's just remember that a lot of this conflict is something that we either started or we worsened, and the quagmire in Afghanistan is the result of a policy failure. I'm not going to point fingers at anybody, at any world leader, and I'm not going to say that some amazing work is being done in Afghanistan, because it has been, but now is not the time to get slack and let that good work go to waste. So Afghanistan, my heart's with you, and so is my team's hearts to everybody who's scared, no matter who you are. All I can say is I wish you all the best for whatever good that does. But I know it probably won't be much. Oh well, that was that. That was that. And whether this was a pointless exercise or not, it's not about me. It's about the people of Afghanistan. Because they deserve better than this. From Rise This Podcast, I'm Kieran Watts. I'll see you on our next episode.